Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, it's Tuesday. We're back to the mushroom murder trial. Gosh, it feels like forever ago that we last spoke about this trial, but it's only a few days. And we're right at the end of this trial, aren't we? So, this is the case of Erin Patterson. This is the artist's impression from the courtroom. These are the four victims, if you like, of Erin. We have Don Patterson up here, his wife Gail, her sister Heather, and her husband Ian. All were poisoned by Erin. I mean, there's no doubt that they were poisoned by Erin. The doubt is, did she intentionally mean to poison them and kill them or hurt them terribly? Or was it all a terrible accident that she was foraging mushrooms, which apparently now she says she did all the time, though of course initially she said she didn't. Now she says she did. She was a keen forager and she didn't realize she got these death cap mushrooms mixed up with the normal mushrooms and put them in the apparently delicious beef Wellington that she served up to these poor unfortunate people, and only one survived. Ian Wilkinson is the only one out of those four that is still alive, except for Erin, of course, because she supposedly ate the same meal, but depends what you believe, doesn't it? Ian was the only survivor from the lunch guests. She invited them over to lunch on a Saturday afternoon, said she had something very important to talk to them about, though. Now she's saying, no, she didn't say that. I think if you've been watching this regularly with me, you'll know that Erin's lies are legend. Her self-confessed lies. She is a liar. She's a self-confessed liar. You'll hear in a moment that even the judge says that in his summing up. But the thing that Erin is saying to us is, yes, I told all those lies. Yes, I did. But I'm not lying now. That's basically the basis of Erin's defence. And this, whether she's found guilty or innocent, will depend on whether the jury believe that she's telling the truth now or not, won't it? That's really what it comes down to. I mean, she definitely poisoned them. They definitely died, the poor people. Ian definitely had to have a liver transplant. All those things are definite. What's just not definite, what is the jury's job to decide, is did Erin do it on purpose? Or was it all a big mistake? She didn't mean to hurt them. We've seen her pretend crying, haven't we? But anyway, you can see what I think. But that's just my opinion. Doesn't matter what my opinion is, doesn't matter what anyone's opinion is, except the jury. For the 12 people that are going to decide Erin's fate, the power is in their hands to either find her guilty or find her not guilty. And as whatever verdict they come to, whether we believe it's justified or not, we haven't seen the full story. The jurors have seen everything. And they are, that is the way democratic systems work, justice systems work. It'll depend on whether they find her guilty or not, won't it? So anyway, I'm presuming you know more or less about the case. I've been covering this case, this trial, it feels like 420 days it's been going on. But it's not that many, but it can't be. I mean, we are in the 9th week. Oh, I can see there I've put day 9, but it's not, it's week 9. I need to change that, actually. Yeah, we're not in day now. God, day 9. That seems like a distant memory, doesn't it? We're in week 9 of this trial that was supposed to last between 4 to 6 weeks. And then the judge said, oh, we thought it would be quicker. And then it's not quicker. It's much later. Don't know if I can change that yet. Might have to change it after. I don't know. I can't edit the schedule. I know I can't edit the schedule. I want to edit the title because I've put day 9. Yeah, I think that should change now to week 9. I'm not trying to change the start. Anyway, never mind. I'll leave that, I think, and then I'll have to do it. I'll do it on. Oh, never mind. Every morning is one of those mornings. It doesn't seem to matter what time I get up. I'm never organised. Anyway, so that's what we're going to look at. Week 9. And what's happened is the judge has begun his summing up today. So he's given instructions to the jury about, what to be careful about with the evidence, etc. He can't tell them what to decide. Only they can decide that, but he can give them some guidance as to what's reliable evidence, what's not reliable evidence, etc. And that's what's happened today or last night, as far as Spain's concerned. I'm in Spain. This case, of course, is taking place in Australia. So the day is finished in Australia. And there'll be one more day of judges summing up tomorrow. And then the jury will be sent out to decide Erin's fate. Is it going to be one of those quick decisions? Is it going to last weeks? Just don't know. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. But first of all, as always, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you that subscribe, to the people who've liked my videos, to those of you who share the videos as well. And I want to say special thank you to my members, of course, as always. Special thank you to people who've bought a Ko-fi or sent a super sticker, sent a nice email, left a nice message. All the people that contribute positively to my channel, thank you so much. Now I'm going to say hello to those lovely lurkers. I've been doing a little bit of lurking. Oh my God, now. I never comment on when I am lurking. I never make comments because I don't want to disrupt someone's stream or whatever, because it may disrupt it. So I just got to get my coffee down me so I wake up. Now, those of you who've been watching me, you know that I made this. And we've been using it quite a lot, haven't we? Oh my God, some of these streams I've been lurking on. I wish I would be able to show that. Do you know what? People tell such lies that they say, oh, you know me, I'm not a liar. I can't do that. I've got to be a good girl. I'm being such a good girl. Such a good girl. But, there you go. People watch these streams, they like it. I'm not the YouTube police. I don't tell people what they should watch and what they shouldn't. I just sort of sit there aghast sometimes. I think, oh my God. But anyway, never mind. So, my lovely lurkers, hello. Thank you for watching. Of course, there's the loathsome lurkers as well, but hello to you as well. You probably need sort of you probably need prayers more than anybody. And then I'm going to go into the chat now and see who's brave enough to actually come into the chat. Okay, where are we? So, quite a few of you in there. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Jonathan. So, Tracy's dog emoji, that's her membership badge because she's a member. So, that's her membership badge, Jonathan. Sorry to hear about your cat. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Maria. 5:20 in the morning. Oh, no, 5:20 p.m. Okay. Hi, Angel. Hi, David. But I went a little bit dizzy now. All right. Did Judge Beale do the Boris? Right. I'll need to research that. I don't know much about it. I don't know much about that case, but I will look at it. I'm not sure about this judge. You know that I've not been sure about him. He's quite flippant to me for a judge. Judges are not supposed to be flippant, are they? You know, he's a judge. He doesn't wear a wig. This is what this is how I think he should dress, because I'm old school when it comes to courts and judges, etc. This guy has been cracking jokes, hasn't he, as if it's not a triple murder trial. You know, I mean, this is not a shoplifting trial. This is a triple murder trial. And these people who had their lives taken, they did have their lives taken away by Erin, whether by accident or whether by design. You know, 3 people are dead. Don, Gail, and Heather. You know, there's no more story for them. There'll be no more photos of them. These are they're gone, dead, because of this woman's actions one way or another. So I don't believe that Justice Beale should be so flippant. But anyway, maybe it's just me. And then, of course, during the trial, in the early days of the trial, somebody, a protester, did break in and start criticising Justice Beale, but we don't know really what he was protesting about. But he wasn't protesting to Erin or anything to do with what this particular trial. He was protesting about this judge. That makes you wonder what was that about. But yeah, I don't like his flippancy, to be honest. But hey, it's everyone's a celebrity these days, aren't they? Even judges. Do you know what I mean? I mean, and one thing I will say about British justice, when you watch the judges, they are like, they have their gravitas, don't they? I've never seen a flippant judge. And the American judges, I think they're very serious as well. I don't think I've ever really seen a judge that I've thought, oh God. But this judge, just seems to think it's all hilarious. But so that I don't like. But anyway, that's him, Mr. Justice Beale. We'll see what we're going to listen to what he, his summing up is. And I suppose, hi Jane, I suppose whoever, we're going to, we've got our own thoughts on this case, haven't we? All of us have. Some people veer towards I think most people on this channel, to be honest, from the polls I've done, are more of the opinion that Erin probably is guilty. But again, it's not up to us, is it? It's up to the jury. But we've all got our different views. So as we listen to the judges summing up, what we think of it will probably depend on what we already think, because, that's just human nature. Whether it's right or wrong doesn't really matter. Sorry, Maria's just distracted me there. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I'm doing a Justice Beale now. I'm being flippant. So apparently this morning in court, Justice Beale made a mistake referring to a Dr. Mushroom. His name is Muldoon. Well, do you know what? As much as I'm not over keen on Justice Beale, I'm not surprised he did that. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the 9th week he's had to talk about mushrooms and listen to all the talk about mushrooms. I'm sure we've all been saying mushrooms in times when we shouldn't say mushrooms. Oh, dear me, dear me. Hi, Jane. I can't remember if I said hello to Jane or not, but... Right, so if I miss anyone coming in, I'm sorry, because I'm going to go into my spiel now, reading about this. I'm just glad it's coming to an end. They must all be glad. The jury, the judge, Erin, the Ian, the survivor. Everybody just must be glad that this is finally, the end is in sight, because it has gone on an awful long time, hasn't it? So court is reconvening in Morwell after a 4-day weekend. Yeah, so this court has not sat properly. Well, the jury have not sat anyway since Thursday. And just a reminder, no cameras are allowed in court, but the media are allowed. So I think it's 5 members of the media every day are allowed in the actual courtroom. And then there's an overflow room where they get video footage, they get it recorded, live footage, but they're not allowed to take photos or repeat that video or anything. They're only allowed to report on it. So we've been following the ABC News, haven't we? Their live blog. And so, is secondhand, because that's all that's available to us, unfortunately. Would have been nice to have seen Erin's face as she was testifying, get a better picture of whether we think what she said was true or not. And I mean, we do have to remember, I think the judge mentions this here, we do have to remember that just because she has told a million lies does not mean that she's lying now when she's saying that she didn't have anything to do with it. So, it's quite difficult that though, isn't it? I think that's what Erin will fight against the most with the jury, is when you tell so many lies, even though I think even the judge will say, you've got to almost take each lie on face value, haven't you? Just because someone's told 10 lies doesn't mean the 11th thing they say couldn't possibly be true. That seems to be the defence's argument. Yes, lie, but I'm not lying now. But anyway, the jury's got to decide that. So last week, prosecutor Nanette Rogers and defence barrister Colin Mandy delivered their closing addresses, and today Justice Christopher Beale is expected to begin giving his final directions to the jury before it retires to start deliberating on 4 verdicts. So, of course, there are 4 verdicts they've got to give. There's 3 murder charges and 1 attempted murder charge. So his directions are expected to be lengthy and the jury is not expected to go out today. Okay, so yeah, if you need to catch up on this case, the playlist is in the description box of this video. Every single day from day 1 is on there. So Justice Beale begins his instructions to jury members. He tells them there will be 3 parts: the principles of the law, the issues they will need to decide, and the procedure to be followed when they decide on their verdicts. He explains that if he doesn't mention some evidence, it does not mean it's not important. On the flip side, if he mentions a particular piece of evidence or an argument by the counsel, it doesn't mean it's more important than others. He presents them with a hard copy of exhibits and evidence that was presented during the trial. It's 86 pages long. It's not homework. You don't have to plow through it, but it's something you can dip into, he tells the jury. He explains that the first section of the chronology covers a large period of time from 2007 to 2022. After that, the key dates are broken up into sections from July 29th, when the lunch was held at Erin's house, to other events, including when she presented at the Leongatha Hospital for the first time on July the 31st. He says then there are a series of post-it notes because there were only 10 dividers in the pack. Right, so you couldn't get 2 packets then of dividers, only 1 packet of dividers. Oh, I can't bear things like this, honestly. If things can't be done properly in serious things like this. So there's a series of post-it notes because there were only 10 dividers in the pack. Surely could have sent someone out to buy another pack. So they include pointers to the exhibit list. Justice Beale says he's tried to steer clear of controversy in the chronology, but he says if there's something in the chronology they think is wrong, it's their opinion that counts, not his. Yeah, I'm not keen on this guy. I don't know why. He takes the jury to August the 1st, 2023. He says there's an entry at 12:18 with an entry above that does not have a timestamp. It's a conversation between Erin and Simon. That's her estranged husband. Let's have a look at him because we've not had a look at him. Gosh, feels like ages since I've shown all these pictures. So yeah, this is Simon, Erin's estranged husband. It was his mother and father and auntie who died, of course. This is Nanette Rogers, who's the prosecuting lawyer, Dr. Nanette Rogers. This is Colin Mandy, who's the defense solicitor, who's had his work cut out, to be honest. And of course, this is Erin, who is the accused. Now, actually, I found a very interesting video about Erin. I'm just going to try and find it because I'm going to need to just pop off in a minute. And I might put that video on. I might just have to pop away for a couple of minutes in a moment. But yeah, I found a very interesting video. Talking about her life before this lunch. And what like people who'd worked with her had to say about her. No, I won't be able to find it now, will I? Let me just try one more time to find it. If I can't find it, I'll have to put something else on. You can never find what you're looking for. I'll find it after I've finished the stream properly. Found it last night and I watched it and I thought I'm going to show that tomorrow, and then now, of course, it's disappeared. No, never mind. I'll put something else on. I'll probably put on the video of Erin when she was interviewed outside her home. Let me get that up ready because I know I might have to go all of a sudden. Sorry. Yeah, you know that one where interview, and she gets their names wrong. So anyway, that's what I'll put on if I have to go in a moment, just briefly. So sorry. So going back to, Judge Beale takes the jury to August the 1st, 2023. He says there's an entry at 12:18 with an entry above that does not have a timestamp. It's a conversation between Erin and Simon about her dehydrating mushrooms and hiding them in muffins for their daughter to taste test. Just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, the more you think about that, why would you dehydrate mushrooms and put them in muffins? He explains it's used first names to differentiate between all the Patterson family members, whereas all others in the chronology are referred to using their surnames. He says it's just more convenient, it's more user-friendly, and I mean no disrespect by referring to people by first names. Personally, I think first names are more respectful. He then explains he's used different colours to make it easier for the jury. Red colouring is for questions asked by the prosecution, and blue is for questions asked by the defence. He says that during that August the 1st conversation, at one point, Erin said the children left the room momentarily, and she alleges Simon said, "Is that how you poisoned my parents using the dehydrator?" And she answered, "Of course not." And he says that evidence is not mentioned in that entry of the chronology because it's a point of controversy. So remember that Erin said Simon had said that, and that's what made her panic and get rid of the dehydrator. But Simon said, no, he did not say that. So again, just comes to whether you believe Simon or you believe Erin, or do you just discount it completely? Right, sorry, I've just got to pop off for a minute. I'm going to put on this video for you to watch again. Right, 8 minutes. It is, I think I'll be back by then. I've just got to sort something out for the doctor, won't be a sec. Hey, Chatterate. No, I've been doing a little bit of research, watching some other sort of programs about the mushroom murder trial that we've been following all these weeks. And I thought, I'll just have a little look back at that interview that Erin gave. It's really the only time that we've seen Erin speak, isn't it? Of course, we've heard her testimony or heard of her testimony through the trial of the last few days of the trial. But really, this is, I think, the only time that we've seen Erin actually speak herself. So I thought, I'll just have a little watch of that. And, well, let's see. Unbelievable.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you...
Now, there's a lot of rubbing of her eyes and looking at her fingers as if there's tears on there, but there actually are no tears. Now, I know what I think of Erin Patterson, and maybe I'm wrong. She is still innocent. She's not been convicted yet, but there's no tears coming from this woman's eyes. But the most, that's by the by, because who knows how they would act, I suppose, in those circumstances. But she gets all the victims, she gets the victims' names wrong. She gets Don and Ian confused. Very strange. Have a listen.
Of course.
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather.
No, Erin, you were right the first time. She said, the loss of Don, and then she said, no, Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian. Ian is the survivor. It was Don who had died. Don and Gail who had died. I think they were the first two to die, and then Heather. But she gets the name wrong. It's bizarre, isn't it? Really, absolutely bizarre. Look at how her face is there as well. She's very difficult to believe, isn't she? I mean, apart from all the lies she's told anyway, she's told so many lies. She is difficult to believe for that reason. And this dry crying, and the way she's inspecting her fingers. But the most significant thing to me through this interview is she gets their names mixed up. Very bizarre.
And Gail, they were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were
wasn't dead. Ian's the survivor. It's bizarre, isn't it? And she's rubbing away tears that just aren't there. And in fact, when you freeze her face like this, is it just me? Look, I'm sure you'll all let me know what you think in comments.
People I've ever met, they never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us
and the loss to the community and to the families and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom.
She can't fathom what's happened.
What has happened? That Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray.
She did it again.
Lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray that Ian and Heather have lost their lives.
Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Don is still in hospital. How could you get their name? Yeah, she definitely got all the names mixed up, which just seems really odd to me. But, saying that Ian was dead, he wasn't dead. He's still not dead. A very strange woman, this, whatever way you look at it. I know being a strange person doesn't mean you're a murderer, so I understand that, but God. Right, we'll just watch this to the end, then we'll go back to the things mixed up like that. I think that's absolutely bizarre. I can't believe nobody's ever pointed that out. And I can't believe that I didn't notice it before.
And Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through because my children love him.
Yeah, I think Don was still alive. I pray that he pulls through because my children love him. She's talking about Don, the granddad, but he was already dead, and it wasn't. It was Ian who was hanging on, and Ian did survive. Really odd that. Yeah, she got me all confused. I think Don was the last one to die out of the three who died. So maybe Don was still alive. But she definitely said about Ian being dead. So anyway, very confusing. It's like she's making it up as she goes along, isn't she? Anyway, let's go off that now and we'll go back to what we were saying. I've got some classes later, so I have got to get on with it. But, anyway. So he asked the jury to put the chronology away until they're in the jury room. And he says that in this case, sorry, I had to get some water as well. He says that in this case, it's alleged by the prosecution that Erin committed attempted murder and 3 counts of murder. She's pleaded not guilty. Now it's up to the jury to decide on the verdict. He tells them they're the only ones in this court who can make a decision on the facts. And he says it's not his responsibility to decide the verdict. He says that the answers the witnesses gave in court are the evidence, not the questions they were asked. So the answers are the evidence, not the questions they were asked. Okay. He tells the jury they must look at the exhibits tendered to court and take into account the agreed facts. He warns them to be wary of transcripts in case or of errors. You alone are the judges of the facts of this case, he says. He says the jury must ignore all other considerations, including any prejudice or sympathy for anyone in the case. He says that the prosecution must have proven that Erin Patterson was criminally responsible for the deaths of her in-laws and Ian Wilkinson's illness. He says the jury cannot allow sympathy for the Patterson or Wilkinson families to affect their judgment. I'm not asking you to be inhumane. None of us are robots, he says. He tells the jury it must scrupulously guard against any sympathy interfering with their duty to decide the verdict. He notes there's been unprecedented media coverage of the case. He warns the jury that members should be particularly careful not to let it influence them. He also warns against being influenced by anything they may have overheard from family, friends, or associates. No one in the media, in public, in your workplace, or in your homes sat in that jury box throughout the trial, he says. You and you alone are best placed to decide whether the prosecution has proven their case beyond reasonable doubt. He says the jury must assess how credible the evidence was from each witness. He tells them to use what they believe is true and disregard what they don't believe. Well, basically, then that is just disregard everything that Erin said, in my opinion. He now touches on the evidence by Erin Patterson's children. He says that children can accurately remember and report past events, but their language and development affects how they understand words and phrases. A child's level of development also affects whether a child understands certain concepts, he says. So don't forget, even Erin's children gave a different story to what Erin gave, and she said, they were mistaken. And people quite often discredit what children say. But I think children, a lot of the time they say honestly, speak honestly, don't they? They say what they remember happened. There's no reason for them to change it or, got no ulterior motive. Personally, I'd be more likely to believe what a child said. Now, I know that, well, not only children, but all of us, recollections vary, don't they? We all have different. If you think back to a conversation you had with a friend or a family member, there are things you will remember more because for whatever reason they touched you and resonated in your memory more than things that other people remember. There are always, discrepancies, aren't there? I mean, I think we have to accept that. But to me, I think I'd be more likely to accept what a child said. I don't know. Because especially in this case, we've got no reason to lie, have they? Erin has a reason to lie. That's the one thing we do know. She has a reason to lie because she's trying to avoid being sent to prison for the rest of her life. So you could see, but why would the children lie? But they could misremember. So he says a child's level of development also affects whether a child understands certain concepts. So he says, Erin Patterson chose to give evidence. She did not have to do that, he says. In choosing to give evidence, she undertook to tell the truth. Oh, come on. Come on. She gave evidence because there was no other defense. Nobody else. He should be saying this, the judge here, but I suppose he can't say things that are too controversial. But to me, the fact that Colin Mandy only called one witness for the defence, and that was Erin, and all the things he disputed about the prosecution's case, he never brought a witness to dispute any of it. He said, oh, well, the prosecution was cherry picking what the friends said. Lots of friends might not have said those things about Erin, that she was an atheist and this, that, and the other. But he didn't call any friend that said, oh, no, Erin wasn't an atheist or Erin wasn't angry with her in-laws. He didn't have a witness to confirm that. He was just challenging what the prosecution had. The prosecution brought in loads of prosecution witnesses. The only one he brought up was Erin, to just tell another load of lies. Well, she says these aren't lies, but how do we know? In choosing to give evidence, she undertook to tell the truth, he says. But he says the jury must assess her evidence in the same way as they would all the other witnesses. He says if they find her evidence to be true, they must find her not guilty. And he says if they think it might be true, that's a reasonable doubt. But he says if they don't believe her, they have to put the testimony aside and still see if the prosecution has proven the rest of the case beyond reasonable doubt. Okay. So, Justice Beale revisits some evidence presented to the jury. He says Simon Patterson told the court how Erin Patterson got along well with his parents, especially his father, and that after they had separated, that close relationship continued. He says Simon told the court Miss Patterson was generous with the money she'd inherited, and that is true. Lending some to his siblings to buy their homes, definitely that was true. But you know what happened later was they weren't grateful enough. That's my opinion. She did that because she liked to be the center of everything. She liked to be the queen bee. And then as time passed, then they weren't grateful enough and they didn't invite her to a couple of family gatherings. And Simon described himself as separated on his tax form. That's when it all started going wrong with Erin, when she, in my opinion, when she realized she was no longer the queen bee. And that's where it all went wrong. Now, I still am not 100% certain she meant to murder these people, but I am 100% certain that she meant to make them quite ill. But anyway. So in relation to the children, he says Simon described Miss Patterson as a devoted mother. And he also recalls some of the evidence from Simon's siblings about their relationships with the accused. And he says that Facebook Messenger friends also spoke about her being a wonderful mother. And he tells the jury that if they accept she is a person of good character, they can use it to assess the credibility of her evidence, denials of the prosecution case, and likelihood of her committing the offences. Now, but Colin Mandy didn't bring any of these Facebook friends up to give her a character reference. You know, I don't accept that. You know, the defence brought nobody to speak in Erin's defence except Erin. And to me, that is telling, because he was too scared to call the other people because they could have been cross-examined and different things could have come out. Anyway, he says that does not mean they have to find her not guilty if they accept she's of good character. He says a person who has previously been of good character can commit a crime for the first time, which is true, isn't it? You know, I think you just never know what's going on in someone's head. Someone can appear perfectly, you know, nice, normal, never hurt a fly, and then they do, until they do. So then there was a break, and the reporter says that Erin Patterson was wearing paisley and has been neutral, looking at Justice Beale while he speaks to the jury. And the jury has been given this folder with trial chronology, which is 86 pages long, and an exhibits list. Okay, I'll just come back and make sure you're all okay in the chat. Yeah. I know I worry. Hi, Joanne. I worry. Is she going to get off? Please don't let her get off. Please, please, please. Because I do not feel that she is innocent. But you know what? We have to take whatever the jury decide. That's what we have to accept. So Justice Beale says Erin Patterson gave evidence about her tendency to forage for wild mushrooms. He summarises her evidence to court and says her interest started during the first COVID lockdown in 2020 while she was walking with her children. She told the court she loved the taste of mushrooms and said they were healthy. Whatever, Erin. In her evidence, Miss Patterson said she also bought mushrooms from farmers' markets, grocery stores and Asian grocers in Melbourne. And Justice Beale says Miss Patterson gave evidence she liked exotic mushrooms because they had more flavour. And she noticed wild mushrooms grown around Korumburra, Leongatha and her own property. He says he told the court about Facebook groups for mushroom lovers, and she posted photos there for members' opinions, and that she started eating them once she was confident about what they were. He says she accepted that death cap mushrooms were in the beef Wellingtons and that most of the mushrooms she bought for the meal were purchased from Woolworths and some from an Asian grocer in Melbourne. So going back to this Asian grocer, those of you who've been following it will know she said she'd bought them from the Asian grocer, but she couldn't remember which one it was. She couldn't even remember the area where it was. Nobody else was poisoned by toxic mushrooms from an Asian grocer around. There was a big investigation launched because, of course, you know, if she had bought them from a retailer, there was every chance that other people might have bought these poisonous mushrooms as well. Nothing was ever found. Erin tried to avoid the investigation, etc. You know, it was, I think it was blatantly a lie, that, personally, in my opinion. In fact, I haven't used my thing yet, have I? So let's have a look. When that knee-jerk reaction, when she was asked where she got the mushrooms from, and she said, oh, an Asian grocer, she didn't realise that that would result in this investigation about the mushrooms. And she tried to avoid then sort of talking about it, didn't she? But of course, you know, then it became a police investigation. And she couldn't avoid it anymore. And these are the culprits, death cap mushrooms, which you could see, you know, as I've said from the beginning, Erin's best defence would have been, oh my God, yeah, I foraged those mushrooms, they looked okay. But then she'd be struggling because, you know, it was on her devices that she did search, the iNaturalist site, and she did search for death cap mushrooms. So she was definitely looking for them for whatever reason. I don't think she can avoid that. He says she accepted that the death cap mushrooms were in the beef Wellingtons and the mushrooms she bought for the meal were from Woolworths and an Asian grocer. So he then touches on her evidence about buying a food dehydrator. So remember, she bought that food dehydrator the same day that she'd apparently been Googling about death cap mushrooms, and she'd been to the area where death cap mushrooms were supposedly have been found. Next minute, boom, she buys a dehydrator. So he says she dehydrated mushrooms she foraged not long after buying the appliance on April the 28th, 2023. He points to photos taken from a device found at Miss Patterson's home and her evidence about picking mushrooms at Corumburra Botanic Gardens and her experiment with drying them. He says that she weighed them because of the need to get all the water out of them to preserve them. What? Now, of course, what the prosecution was saying was that because there were photos, weren't there, on one of her devices, of these mushrooms, or of some mushrooms, bit on a scales, and it was alleged by the prosecution that she was weighing them to judge the right amount to use. I think she misjudged the amount to use. I think she weighed them and she thought, oh, she could just put a little bit and that she could make them quite violently ill to teach them a lesson for not treating her like Miss Queen Bee. And I think she misjudged it. I bet she couldn't believe it when they died. So he then goes through all the species she said she found while foraging on walks with her children, including not eating some that she didn't recognise. And don't forget, her children said they never went looking for mushrooms. Yeah? So her children said, children would remember that, surely. I remember when my son was young and we used to go on, like, I used to call them nature trails, you know, and we never found any mushrooms, thank God. Well, I wouldn't have picked them anyway. But we used to find like cones and snail shells, empty snail shells, and we'd take them home and paint them and, you know, that sort of thing. But my son would remember that. Of course he would, because that was, and he was really little when we did that. You know, it isn't one of Erin's children is 13, I think. So they would definitely remember. Anyway, he recalls Miss Patterson's evidence about buying mushrooms from an Asian grocer that smelt pungent, so she didn't use them for the dish that she planned. And that was a spaghetti carbonara, wasn't it? She said she was going to make a carbonara, she was going to use these mushrooms, and then they smelt too pungent. So she put them back in the thing and then got them back out again. Where's my water? Oh, I think I've finished it. I've got some in my glass, but I'll have to go and get another bottle in a minute. So yeah, these pungent mushrooms, she didn't want to put them in this spaghetti carbonara because it smelt so pungent. So, but she put them away to use them again later. And she thought they were perfect for a beef Wellington, didn't she? She thought they would be perfect for a beef Wellington. So he goes through photos that show Miss Patterson's children in some of the areas. She says she foraged mushrooms. And he says Miss Patterson gave evidence that after she bought the dehydrator, she took photos of it and shared them with her Facebook friends. But she admitted lying to the police about owning one. So yeah, that was the first lie that she told the police, wasn't it? They asked her if she had a dehydrator. She said no. So this is a similar dehydrator to the one that Erin allegedly had. Well, she did have and she dumped. But she told the police, first of all, didn't she? No, I've never had a dehydrator. I've never foraged for mushrooms. These were... And then later she said, no, they were lies. Yeah, they were lies. But I'm telling the truth now. Honest Indian, as they say. So he said she also admitted to lying about not foraging for mushrooms. And he says Miss Patterson gave evidence she knew about toxic mushrooms in the area. She looked up whether death cap mushrooms grew in the South Gippsland area. He says Miss Patterson said it was possible. She did a computer search that landed on the iNaturalist website post about death cap mushrooms just before a dinner order was made for the Corranborough Middle Pub. I mean, you know, that was quite horrible, really, when you think about it. So she did a computer search. Oh, she said it was possible it was her, because that's been Erin's stock answer to everything, is either she doesn't remember, it's possible, or yes, that was a lie, but I'm telling the truth now. That's really basically the three things that Erin has said, isn't it? And this is quite horrible because apparently she did this computer search that she says it was possible that it was her, that landed on the iNaturalist website post about death cap mushrooms. So she's looking at the iNaturalist post about death cap mushrooms, and it makes her a bit peckish then, because then after that she makes a dinner order from the Corranborough Middle Pub. So, you know, because she likes mushrooms, don't forget. So looking at those pictures of death cap mushrooms just must have made her a little bit peckish, mustn't it? Let's have a mushroom. Oh, I wonder what she ordered. Did she order a burger or something? Because did she order a mushroom stroganoff or, you know, mushrooms on something? I mean, that's quite sinister, that, isn't it? To be looking at death cap mushrooms, probably planning to, you know, serve them up either to her husband or his relatives. Because I don't forget, this 3 times something that's not been allowed to be brought into this trial. But there are 3 times that Simon got ill that it's thought that Erin probably tried to poison him. But those charges were dropped, so we're not allowed to hear anything about them in the trial or anything. But they'll come up sooner or later. So, yeah, it seems like when Erin's looking at mushrooms, it makes her hungry. And then she ordered a dinner order. So, of course, you know, she says it was possible it was her. Well, who else was it? It was her card, used her computer, her card. Was it her children who did it? No, it was her. Looking at death cap mushrooms made her hungry and she decided to order something to eat. I think she's a very sinister woman, personally. Very, very sinister woman. And just thank God she hasn't gone and trained to be a nurse or a midwife that she was planning on doing. She should never be in a position where she's in charge of people and their welfare, in my opinion. Justice Beale said she told the court the children saw her picking mushrooms and that they also picked some at some point. But then Justin Beale refers to Erin Patterson's son's interview with police where he says he didn't remember his mother picking mushrooms. And then there was similar evidence from her daughter. So both her son and daughter did not remember these imaginary mushroom picking trips. He says she disagreed that she didn't go foraging for non-toxic mushrooms. He refers to the lack of messages between Erin and Simon about picking and eating wild mushrooms. Yeah, all the messages that went through, there was no messages from Erin to anybody saying, oh yeah, I was out today and I picked some mushrooms. Anyway. He says that the defence outlined how Miss Patterson loved mushrooms and said that the fact her children can't remember her picking mushrooms was that they were young kids and it didn't mean she didn't forage. No, but it's funny that neither of them remember as well, isn't it? You know, one maybe wouldn't remember, but neither of them remember. There was evidence by a mushroom expert that more people began foraging for mushrooms during COVID, he reminded the jury. He says the defence suggested that Miss Patterson's possible visit to the eye naturalist post about death cap mushrooms was not sinister. She did not conceal the fact she had bought a dehydrator from her Facebook friends. She gave a consistent account for her testimony, and there was no evidence of her intention to poison her relatives. And Justice Beale says the prosecution alleges she is a self-confessed liar, that her children had no knowledge of their mum's foraging for edible mushrooms. There were no messages to friends or family nor books on foraging, and asserted that her claims of being interested in foraging was a recent intervention. And he says the jury must weigh all this up in its deliberations. I mean, I don't envy the jury. I mean, it's, you know, it is really a question of, do you believe her or not? You know, I mean, do we believe her? I personally don't believe her, but there you go. And then, yeah, the factory reset, and he hasn't even got this yet. Hi, Sean. Hope I haven't missed anyone coming in. I don't think so. And hi again to all you lurkers at home. Thanks for caring about these victims, all of you. The plates. I think the plates is a big thing, you know, to me. You know, I'm like obsessed with the plates. Where are they? Justice Beale says he must give directions about hearsay evidence. That is evidence witnesses say they heard others say. Yeah, because, you know, Heather Wilkinson, she's dead, unfortunately, so she can't actually, you know, speak now. But she spoke from beyond the grave through Simon and through Ian, because he says, so the judge says, Simon Patterson spoke about Heather Wilkinson's claims about Miss Patterson serving herself lunch on different coloured plates rather than her guests. Now, the problem is that, yeah, Heather is not here anymore, so she couldn't actually stand up in court and say that. But Simon said it for her. But this is hearsay, and that can be difficult in court. But, you know, so the jurors have just got to decide, do they believe Simon or do they believe Erin? Do you believe this serial liar, Erin Patterson, or do you believe Simon, that we don't know if he's a liar or not? I mean, maybe he's a serial liar, but we don't have that evidence, do it? We know that Erin is a proven liar. She even admits she's a liar. So he says Simon also gave evidence about driving Ian and Heather to hospital, and Heather asking him if she was sure, if Miss Patterson was short on crockery. He says Simon couldn't remember the exact wording or phrases she used. Justice Beale then turns to Simon's evidence about talking to his parents in hospital and his father saying that Miss Patterson had told a lunch guest she had cancer. So again, that's his father, Don. He's no longer with us. He can't testify, but he's sort of testifying from beyond the grave, but it's through Simon. So what the judge is saying, this is hearsay. But it just depends. What do you believe? Who do you believe? He then takes the jury to Ian Wilkinson's evidence about the plates. He reads a transcript in which Ian recalls Heather Wilkinson questioning the different coloured plates. It's for you to determine whether Heather made the alleged statements to Simon and to Ian Wilkinson. He also says this applies to whether Don Patterson talked to Simon about Miss Patterson having cancer. However, before you do so, I must warn you about the need for caution when considering hearsay evidence. He says evidence of out-of-court statements may be unreliable because the witness may not remember things they hear accurately, or the person who made the out-of-court statement may be mistaken, or even dead. Hey, Justice Beale, they may be dead. He says the maker, I mean, you know, I shouldn't get annoyed with him, but I am a bit annoyed with him because I know it's hearsay. But, you know, it's like, why would, well, you've got to think, you know, is Simon lying then when he says his dad said that Erin said she had cancer? Is Simon lying when he says his mum said, oh, is Erin short of crockery because she didn't give it? You know, these are the sort of things a woman would notice. Whenever you go to somebody's house for dinner, I mean, I'm not talking about what we eat day in, day out in our houses, our casual meals, but when you have someone over for dinner, if you've got the same crockery, you know, you normally give them your best crockery, don't you? Don't, you know, depend on, I mean, maybe if it's your best mate and they've just popped over for a bit of pasta or whatever. But, you know, it's about a dinner party. She said she wanted it to be special, but she served them up on different plates. Strange that, I think. And, you know, this was noticed, wasn't it? It was noticed by the guests. He says the maker of out-of-court statements is not under oath, like they would be in court. Oh, as if that matters. Nobody ever lies in court, do they? Oh, my God. It always makes me laugh when they get them to swear, oh, you're under oath. Yeah, they're under oath. Erin doesn't even believe in God. You know, so what difference does it make if she's under oath or not? People lie in court all the time. Anyway, but it's true that there is no chance for the defence to question the person who made this statement. No, especially not when they're dead, eh, Judge? There you go. Another break. The break ends. Justice Beale continues with his directions to the jury. He revisits tendency evidence that Miss Patterson would, from time to time, pick and eat wild mushrooms. He says he inadvertently skipped a part. While speaking about this a little earlier, he tells the jury that if they find Miss Patterson had a tendency to pick and eat wild mushrooms, or if they think there's a reasonable possibility that she did, they may consider it increases the possibility that death cap mushrooms ended up in the beef Wellington accidentally rather than deliberately. He says that both the defence and prosecution has asked that he should highlight some inconsistencies with statements given by witnesses. He says he'll address 5 prosecution witnesses first and begins with Simon Patterson. He mentions Simon's evidence that the reason for the lunch was a serious or important medical issue. We're taken to a transcript where Simon said he couldn't remember the exact words Miss Patterson had said to him, but recalled it being something serious or important. Now, this exactly to me is, I would believe Simon because of this. You don't remember exact words that somebody tells you. You know, if I said to you, what did I just say 5 minutes ago? you'd probably say, oh, well, you said something about mushrooms and you said something about blah, 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 but you wouldn't remember the exact words that I said, would you? And that was only like a couple of minutes ago. So you certainly wouldn't remember what someone said to you months earlier. You'd remember the gist of it. You remember, the gist of what they were saying, but you wouldn't remember the exact words. And I think that if Simon was lying, he would be more likely to come out with an exact statement, because that's more unlikely. Next, we look at inconsistencies in lunge survivor Ian Wilkinson's evidence. Well, yeah, again, this man's been for a liver transplant. He's been on death's door. He's not going to remember every single little word that was said. So first is his evidence on whether the beef Wellington and veggies was served from a tray, possibly an oven tray, and whether Miss Patterson said at the lunch she had cancer. He told the jury that she announced she had cancer at the lunch, but later in cross-examination, it was brought to the jury's attention that he told police she had suspected cancer. Now, I'm not being funny, but she didn't have either. She didn't have cancer and she didn't have suspected cancer. She was having no tests for cancer whatsoever. She didn't have the biopsy on her arm that she told Gail that she had. It was all lies. So just because he can't specifically remember whether she said she had cancer or she thought she had cancer or whatever, what difference does it make? She was still lying. She was still lying, so I don't go with that, to be honest, at all. So I'm going to put the lie thing up for that. Because now, if it was saying he couldn't remember if she said she had cancer or not. Oh, I can't remember if she said she had cancer or did she say she was having gastric bypass. That's a different matter. But she definitely said, she talked about cancer. Now, whether she said she was confirmed that she had cancer or that she had suspected cancer, both of those things were not true. So to me, I don't see it makes any difference whatsoever. We revisit some evidence given by Tanya Patterson about when she noticed a deterioration between Simon and Miss Patterson's relationship. She described their relationship as quite good for many years and said they'd both come to family events, but their relationship started to deteriorate before the lunch. In cross-examination, she was questioned over the dates of when she noticed their relationship deteriorate. The timeline she gave was different to the date she gave in the preliminary hearing. And some evidence given by Dr. Chris Webster and Sally Ann Atkinson is also highlighted to have inconsistencies. He continues reading different parts of transcripts to the jury to highlight some inconsistencies in Miss Atkinson's evidence. It's mainly around when Erin Patterson said she purchased mushrooms and whether she said she used dried Asian mushrooms previously. During the trial and in these highlighted transcripts, Miss Atkinson is being questioned over the accuracy of her note-taking. The transcript that read out is quite lengthy, and once Justice Beale finishes reading it to the jury, he indicates it's a good time for lunch. So he then turns to the inconsistencies that the prosecution wants him to highlight. Oh, sorry, I should have started with this one, I think. All right. So the 5 prosecution witnesses he highlighted were Simon Patterson, Ian Wilkinson, Chris Webster, Tanya Patterson, and Sally Ann Atkinson. Now he's going to the people that the prosecution, or the issues, the topics that the prosecution wants to identify as inconsistencies. So 8 topics. 1, whether Erin Patterson had the tendency to pick and eat wild mushrooms. 2, whether her children were invited to or free to attend the lunch in question. So don't forget, Erin said that her children didn't want to attend the lunch. They wanted to go to the cinema. But the children said they were told not to attend, they couldn't attend the lunch because it was to talk about adult things. So again, who do you believe then? Do you believe Erin, the serial liar, or do you believe the children have got no reason to lie? The source of the mushrooms in the beef Wellington, how much of the beef Wellington Erin Patterson ate, how much of the beef Wellington Gail Patterson ate, because it's thought that they both ate a similar amount. Gail Patterson died because of whatever her half that she ate, and Erin had a little bit of diarrhea, didn't she? Oh, a little bit of diarrhea, just a little bit of the runs. When Miss Patterson started experiencing diarrhea and when she suspected the lunch was the cause of Don and Gail's illness, and whether she knew Don and Gail were in a coma on the Tuesday following the lunch. So Justice Beale takes us to an example of these inconsistencies related to whether or not the children were invited to the lunch. He reminds the jury of the evidence Erin gave where she told her daughter that Don and Gail and Ian and Heather were coming for lunch and that she could attend the lunch or go to the movies if she preferred. That's what Erin said. But Simon Patterson said that she was keen for the children not to be present at lunch because she wanted to discuss a serious matter. And evidence given by both of Miss Patterson's children is also highlighted, including where Miss Patterson's daughter said she wanted to talk about adult stuff at the lunch. And Justice Beale is going through bits and pieces of the evidence that show these types of inconsistencies. So the source of the mushrooms. So he's revisiting evidence given by different medical staff and others. In their evidence, some said she purchased the mushrooms from a supermarket in Leongotha and an Asian grocer in Oakley. One witness said Miss Patterson later told them she couldn't remember the name of the Asian grocer, and it could have been in Glen Waverley. Another then said that Miss Patterson said the mushrooms could have been from an Asian grocer in Oakley, Glen Waverley, or Mount Waverley. Oh my God, I mean, really, it could have been from anywhere, couldn't it? Woolworths in Leongatha is also mentioned as a location where she purchased the mushrooms. And other witnesses said that Miss Patterson told them she had not been mushrooming and no foraged mushrooms were in the meal. So she's making it up as she goes along, basically. We quickly look at the different accounts of how much Erin and Gail ate of the meals. We then turn to when Erin started experiencing diarrhea, which she said occurred on the Saturday night close to midnight. Simon Patterson, however, told the court he remembers her saying it started during the afternoon on the Saturday around 4 p.m. Yeah, she mentioned it much sooner. The other people, gosh, it just shows you how long that takes, those mushrooms to go through your system, because, you know, the meal was at around 1 p.m., wasn't it? And the other people, Heather, Don, etc., they did not experience symptoms until midnight, whereas Erin had said to Simon, according to him, again, who do you believe, that her symptoms started at 4. So was she preempting it? But don't forget, if that's true, that she said around 4, she then ate 3 portions of the cake that she threw back up again, of the pudding, the cake that was brought. She ate 3 portions of it. So would you really do that if your tummy's poorly? So he's now explaining his direction in relation to these inconsistencies. He tells the jury they can either accept the witness prior statement that was inconsistent with their testimony and use the context of that statement. For example, they could use Erin Patterson's statement she ate half the beef Wellington as evidence that she ate half of it, or they can find the statement of the witness they're considering to be inconsistent with their account in court, they can use the statement to assess the witness's reliability. If you find it is inconsistent, you will have two different accounts from the same witness, Justice Beale says. What? Sorry. Oh God, I don't envy this jury. He then says it is up to the jury members to determine which account, if any, is accurate. Oh God. Quick 10-minute break. The jury is back. We're taken to the evidence given by digital forensic experts Matthew Sorrell and Shaman Fox Henry. Ordinarily, witnesses are not allowed to give their opinions in the case. However, the law says people with specialized knowledge or training are allowed to give their opinions if that will assist you or the jury in making your opinions. And I just want to say there, the defense did not call any experts in Erin's defense either. So the prosecution called lots of witnesses to talk about all sorts of things like the mushrooms, the toxicology, the phone data, you name it. There was a prosecution expert witness. Mr. Mandy, for whatever reason, did not call any experts to defend Erin whatsoever. Not even one. So to me, that is telling. Because there was no defense. So he then gives us a rundown of Dr. Sorrell's qualifications and the work he does looking at mobile phone network records, mobile phone data. He highlights some key terminology that Dr. Sorrell used, such as the IMEI number, which is the serial number for a mobile handset. In Dr. Sorrell's evidence, he explained that how when a handset is on the move, it will switch to different base stations or phone towers. He said weather may impact base stations, and he said that the handset can initiate a data connection for its own purpose. And we're looking at this because of a possible trip Erin took to Outram, where it's alleged she foraged for mushrooms. It was her mobile phone records that suggested she might have been in this area during a specific time. It's quite technical information, but all of this evidence has already been presented to the jury in the trial, and don't we know it? We read through all that data. That's on one of the videos in the playlist. So he stated that Dr. Sorrell agreed during the trial there were significant limitations in his evidence in terms of time and place. And the best that can be said is that a phone is in a particular area, or if it is not in a particular area, Dr. Sorrell said while giving evidence. He identified there were 8 possible visits to the locked postcode area based on phone data. These possible visits took place across March 2022, April 2022, August 2022, and February 2023. There were some gaps in the records that Dr. Sorrell had noted while giving evidence. And when considering the issues that his evidence bears upon you, don't consider his evidence in isolation, Justice Beale tells a jury. He says the jury may use Dr. Sorrell's evidence as an indication Miss Patterson possibly visited Lock on certain dates, but may not use it as evidence that the accused actually visited Lock at these times. The thing is, this whole case, that's true what Justice Beale, you can't consider any of the evidence in isolation, can you? But there to me is like, if you just took only that phone evidence was the only evidence against Erin, you'd be struggling to find her guilty, of course. But if you're taking that and all the other evidence, the dehydrator, the lies that she's told, the way she tried to evade the investigation, the lies that she told about having cancer, the testimony from the witnesses, all of it, if you take it all into consideration, the things that her children said, the things that her friends said, none of them on their own is enough to convict Erin, but surely when you put all those together, that's a pretty convincing case against Erin, isn't it? So that was it. On that very technical note, Justice Beale wraps up for the day and says we'll continue tomorrow with the expert evidence of Mr. Fox Henry. And he provides a quick update to the jury in terms of the remaining timeline of this case. You don't need to bring your toothbrush tomorrow. Again, he's flippant, isn't he? You don't need to bring your toothbrush tomorrow, he tells the jury before they are sent out of the room. Yeah, I don't like his flippancy at all. So that's it. So we'll be back tomorrow. Oh, no, please, no. Please, no. So it says here, Justice Beale will be back tomorrow to continue giving his directions to the jury. This could go into Thursday as well. Well, he's told them they don't have to bring their toothbrush tomorrow. After that, the jury will be sent out to deliberate. It's been a mammoth trial, with today marking the 9th week, 36th day. Now, he's just said, don't bring your toothbrush. So I'm hoping that this is not true, that he will finish off tomorrow. You know, not only for our sakes, but for the sake of the witnesses, etc., for everybody who's affected. Please, 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 hope he finishes it. If he spent less time making jokes and more time actually getting through his summing up, maybe it would. Sorry. Oh, bless me. That's the air conditioning. I've just turned off. You see, I did wash my hair today, but I've still got pink in there. Oh, my God. Just have a look. I think you're all okay there in chat. Sorry, I'm just looking through the chat now because, of course, while I was reading out. Yeah, no, Joanne, it was said they don't need to prove a motive. They said that right from the beginning. No motive. Motive is not necessary in a murder case. It helps, of course. Motive is a help, but, a lot of people murder people for no motives that we can see. But, yeah, it is a bit worrying. It is a bit worrying. Because, it could go either way. I think it could go either way. Because we don't know, we don't know who the jury are. We don't know what sort of people they are. Are they more likely to believe a woman or not believe a woman? Or, that's the whole point of our... of the justice system in civilized societies, isn't it? 12 people from all walks of life. And we'd know, there are actually 15 people on this jury. They've all been listening to it. And then 12 of them will be selected by, I think one that actually has already been dismissed, isn't it? Hasn't already one juror been dismissed? Because supposedly talking to their friends and family about it or something. So there's 14 jurors left, I think. But only 12 will go into the deliberation phase. So they'll draw lots to decide. Imagine if you'd sat through listening to all that and then you don't get selected to go into the final phase. You'd be livid, wouldn't you? You'd be raging. Like, what? I've sat through all this and now I'm not even going to get an input on it. But yeah, so 12 people, and then it all depends, doesn't it? What God. Yeah, Joanne, the prosecution have spoken. Yeah, this is the final thing now. Didn't you? I'm sure you watched it with us. If you look in the playlist, the prosecution arguments, I think it went over 2 days. Yeah, I can't remember what days they were, Joanne, but they're all in the they're all on the playlist. I'm just seeing if I can find it for you. Let's see. God. Huh. Well, I found one. So this, I'll put it in there. But anyway, you can find it in the. This is the second day of the prosecution closing arguments. But there was a day one as well. So they refer to motive there, but it's not necessary to prove a motive, actually. But anyway, yep, the Mushroom Chronicles continues. Yeah, Jonathan, no character references. You know, you'd think that if you were defending somebody for murder, you know, you would bring in some defense witnesses at least to say, oh, there's no way that she could do that. You know, she had a great relationship with her in-laws. He didn't bring anybody as a defense witness to say that Erin and her in-laws had a great relationship. In fact, the person who said that most was Simon, her ex-husband. But they never brought in one of Erin's friends to say, has Erin even got any friends apart from Facebook friends? Nobody was brought up as a defense witness to say, oh, no, you know, they had a brilliant relationship. So that's suspicious, I think. Nobody. No. Yeah, what about her sister, Maria? Yeah, she never came in for defense either, did she? I mean, have they even got a good relationship? I don't know. Yeah. Why didn't they bring their sister in to give her a character reference? So, okay, I've got to go because I've got a Spanish class. Voy a hablar español. I've got to get my Spanish head on now. Forget about mushrooms. Champiñones, as they are in Spanish. Yeah. Well, you know, so this video that I found about Erin, like when she, you know, the jobs that she had and what she was like at work, I'll find it, I will find it. You know, the people that she used to work with said she was very intelligent, but she was aggressive, difficult to get on with. But that, you know, I can't find the video that said that, but I will find it. And if her sister's an academic, why didn't her sister speak in her defense? Maybe they're not close, eh? So, yeah. Or maybe, you know, she just can't get a character reference. Anyway. Okay, I'm off. So listen, please remember to like this video. That's a free way you can help me out. If you enjoy watching my channel, please like and please subscribe, of course. And thank you for watching. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your God go with you. And I just want to say one more thing, actually. Let's just have one last look. I mean, they're always up in the corner there. But yeah, let's not get away from the fact this is what this case is about. 3 dead people, 3 people, vulnerable people, went in all faith to a lunch that they were looking forward to, that they enjoyed, was delicious. They prayed for this woman because she said she had cancer, and then they died, and only Ian survived. This is what this is about. Let's not forget that. So I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. Bye. Bye.